Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is enter the Gungeon. It's a great name for a game if you happen to like the puns. So, as a result, I will be entering today the Pungeon. You have been warned. Be careful not to be triggered. How? So this is by a company called Dodgeroll, and it is the latest entry in what I would consider an overcrowded genre, that being the action-orientated roguelite. It's not a roguelike, we've talked about this before. It enters a genre that is dominated, perhaps, by games like Isaac. Will it, in fact, dethrone Isaac? There's always that risk, isn't there? A classic of the genre might just get shoved out of the way by someone that's taken its conventions and decided, you know what, we can just do it a little bit better. Games work like this a lot. It's actually very prevalent in board games, but it happens a lot in regular gaming as well, and perhaps it just goes less noticed in this particular industry. It's the idea that one game could potentially make another one obsolete, because it has very similar mechanics, it perhaps has a different theme, but it is better in the eyes of some in many ways than what preceded it, and as a result, because said people enjoy that genre, they replace the older game with the newer game. Like I said, it happens a ton in board games. I think because, of course, board games take up physical space, more often than not, you're selling them off or you're getting rid of them, because you can't have hundreds and hundreds of board games necessarily in your house because you don't have the space for it. Can you leave the title screen up? Jeez, thank you. Gungeon is very shy, it seems. Gun shy? Ah! The point of the matter is that, especially in board gaming, you get re-themes and you get games which focus on different aspects of the overall goal of a previous title. Maybe enhance the mechanics, shake them up a little bit, and as a result, they can just become the game that you play instead of the previous one. You know, I think we picked up Secret Hitler as opposed to Werewolf, as opposed to Resistance. I think it's just a better game in general. Will Gungeon replace Isaac? Well, I guess we're about to find out, won't we? Alright, video options menu. Well, this could use a little bit of work, I gotta say. So, you got your visual presets here. Custom is what we've got right now. You get to set resolution. Now, if you set resolution any higher than 1080p, it's gonna complain and say, this is not pixel perfect. So, basically, the graphics, the art, the pixel art, was designed for that particular resolution. You can stretch it, and you have a scaling mode here to allow you to do just that. Right now, of course, it's set to pixel perfect, because I'm set to 1080p. So, if you want to run in a higher or lower resolution, you can do that, and it's got a mode to let you scale to that. But as it says here, this is the intended visual design. So that's what they wanted the game to look like. So as a result, I'm going to show you the game like that. Windowed mode. There's also borderless and full screen. A little bit of a problem with the windowed mode is that it doesn't have mouse constraint, which means the mouse can escape the outside of the window. Don't like that. Wish that wouldn't happen. Can be a particular problem on multi-monitor setups, so please don't do that in future. Monitor selection, if you've gone full screen, 1 or 2, always good. VSync on or off. Lighting quality, shaded quality. I mean, this game is not very demanding. Let me put it that way. It is pixel art. Of course, do check the system requirements before you purchase, but regardless of that, you do at least have a little bit of customization here, which again is quite rare for a game that uses pixel art in this way, so you've got to actually give them credit for that, I think. No anti-aliasing, because it's a pixel art game, you probably wouldn't do that. If you want to force AA on, then do it through your graphics drivers or an injector. It wouldn't look good, I don't think, but you can do it if you use third-party software. I just don't see the point. It's not designed that way. Keyboard bindings. Yes, yes, yes. These are all good things. There is something that is missing from here. This is something that took me 12 hours to discover, and I only knew about it thanks to my stream audience. You can skip the boss cutscenes, and you probably should, because some of the bosses can take quite a while. Hit E. It's not space or escape, as you would expect. This is not in any way listed on this options menu, nor is there any tutorial that tells you so. So just bear that in mind. That should make your life a little bit easier. Music volume, sound effects, UI volume, and then speaker setup can either be headphones or speakers, so that's going to change the dynamic range just a little bit for you. And then your gameplay options. So you've got your quick gun switch, if you wish. You can hide empty guns in combat, which is good. That means you don't scroll to an empty gun. It's always nice. Your default character, you can, if you want, set this to default to anything. So that will give you a little bit of a quicker start every time you die, and you will, repeatedly. Bunch of controller options. I personally think mouse and keyboard is the way to go with this, honestly. Accuracy is improved, although there is a degree of aim assist on the controller to compensate for that. I think you can move faster and more accurately with a keyboard and mouse, but it's personal preference for the most part. There's your save slot. And you also have 2 modes, speedrun and beast mode. No. No thank you, I'm terrible. I would prefer not. Alright, there's your options. Anything in particular missing? Not especially. I think it's pretty well set up. So, without further ado, let us enter the Gungeon, shall we? So you end up out here in this sort of hub area, and you're able to select from a few different characters. You can get other characters. I'm in the process of unlocking one. I think it's the king or whatever. I have yet to actually unlock him as a playable character, but we're getting to that point. So, these 4 characters have different attributes. The Marine is probably the toughest. He's got armor by default. He has the ability to call in ammo, and he's a little bit more accurate thanks to that little passive book that you can see on the list there. He has a sidearm. It's very basic, but it's quite accurate. The pilot, he has a lockpick. He gets cheaper items. There's some other thing he does. I don't play him very often. He's actually my least played character. And he's got a laser pistol. A little bit inaccurate, but does the job. The convict actually starts with 2 weapons, although she has lower health than most. She has a revolver and a sawn-off shotgun, as well as a Molotov cocktail. And whenever she gets hit, she gets enraged. Yes. Never mind. Ignore that happened. And the hunter has a corgi. It is a corgi. I know it looks a bit like a hamster, but we'll accept that it's a corgi for the time being. It identifies as such. She has a revolver and a rather awesome crossbow. The corgi can apparently every now and again dig up items. I have never seen it do that, but apparently it can. You know, I'm very glad there's no HP in this area. Just ignore that happened. Because if you fall down a pit in the regular game, you'll be losing some health. You can see a couple of little dudes over there. I'm not going to spoil what they do, because, of course, the interesting thing about roguelites, especially in this day and age, is that there's a degree of secrecy surrounding them, and deliberate obfuscation of mechanics and ideas. That's something that happens, of course, in games like Dark Souls as well, and the spoiler problem for Dark Souls is fairly major for a lot of people. The interesting thing about it, I suppose, is that I think this obfuscation works both for and against the game. For those that are fans of the genre, I think they almost demand that level of obfuscation because they want to discover things on their own, and they take great value in that secrecy and figuring things out. I don't. So, as a result of that, I find the obfuscation to be annoying, and I think I've stated that in the past with previous roguelite videos. I think it's a justifiable opinion, but a very subjective one. In this game, there are numerous mechanics that are not fully explained, and I wouldn't want to spoil them for you, because if you enjoy this kind of game, if you haven't picked it up already, you might consider doing so, and I wouldn't want to ruin your experience in that respect. But I personally find those ideas a little bit irritating, wasteful. They're a waste of time in my eyes, for the most part. You know, I want to know how to play the damn game. Don't make the game harder just because I haven't figured out something obscure or obtuse. But then again, you know that I'm not a huge fan of this genre. I have numerous issues with it I'm going to address in this video as well. And also try and talk a little bit about how Gungeon in some ways actually resolves some of those issues. At least in my eyes. God Lord! There we go. Sorry, I'm flipping out here. There we go. One of the interesting little mechanics of Gungeon, as you probably figured out, is that it is very much firearms based. In fact, even the enemies look, not all of them, but some of them look like bullets or some kind of gun-related thing. Which is an interesting art style. They're actually quite adorable, really. Even the doors are adorable. Look at this thing. It has no interest in letting me through. This is one of the biggest, most ridiculous rooms I've actually ever seen in the first level. It's really throwing a lot of enemies at me. Ow! It's throwing a lot of enemies at me. For whatever reason. Oh, Jesus. Oh, man, I took so much damage. This is actually a terrible start to the run. We'll get into terrible starts to runs later. But yeah, it's very firearms-based. It has a dodge roll button, which is pretty much required. This dodge roll will allow you to roll through bullets if you time it right. The first half of the dodge is what's considered an I-frame, or invulnerability frame. So you're able to roll through, I think, pretty much anything that's a projectile. You've just got to time it right. And you also have a last-ditch defense in the form of the blank. You'll see up to the top there, you've got some stats. There are 2 little blanks there. If I hit Q, it'll act as a smart bomb, which will blow up every projectile on the screen and also sometimes causes a stun and a knockback to the target. Pretty handy. Usually worth saving for boss fights. Don't really want to use them in a regular room like that. Hello, looks like there's something going on here. Can we have some medicine? Okay. Great, yeah, sure, why not? This is probably going to go horribly wrong, isn't it? I'm having some treatment. Oh no, you gave me Navi. I never asked for this. I think I just ate a fairy. But you know what? I'm actually surprisingly okay with that. There's a key drop in there as well. So, the gameplay is very self-explanatory for the most part. You go through rooms. They are, of course, procedurally generated, as roguelites have a tendency to do. You fight through the room. Once you've cleared the room, that happens, which is an awesome little animation, by the way. Not every room has that, but most. And it will open a teleporter, which allows you to hop around pretty much anywhere on the level, which means that backtracking is minimized. Nice little idea, as far as I'm concerned. And, of course, you will sometimes find treasure. In this case, I have a new gun. Being a game called Gungeon, you would make the logical assumption that it's very much based on a wide variety of guns. And the variety of guns in this game is obscenely large. You have a lot of different choices. Some of them are not very good. Like, there's no doubt about that. This is the snowballer, which is doing exactly what you would expect. It's firing fairly rapid-fire snowballs, and it's freezing enemies, which makes it very useful. I'll probably want to save most of the ammo for this, though, because anything that's not your standard weapon has an ammunition bar over to the side there. You also have to reload it, which is such an innocuous little mechanic, but it's actually surprisingly well integrated to the point where it really affects the gameplay. Because, of course, reload times have to be taken into account, magazine size has to be taken into account in the middle of a really intense and difficult firefight, and the game is absolutely full of those. It is not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. I know I'm awful at it, that I recognize. Thankfully, I'm also able to see the good in the game, even if I absolutely suck at it. And I do. There is no doubt about that. But I love the fact that the integration of guns and firearms into the game is something that is just core to the experience. Like, it gets to the very heart of what Gungeon actually is. It's certainly not a gimmick, nor is it just a flippant design choice that was made on a whim. No, it exists for a very good reason, and everything is built around that. I mean, almost to the point of being obnoxious. It's like, hey, this game's about guns. Did you realize it's guns? There's guns here. Guns, guns, guns. But you know what? That's their theme. And I like their theme. Also, making these adorable little bullets and things and ridiculous guns is really quite cool. Ooh, I think there's a secret area there. How do I open it? Oh, hello. Looks like we have a breakable wall. Can I break it? Should be able to. Nope. If I use a blank, that does it. There we go. I rarely ever find these secret rooms. I used a blank in order to gain a blank and wasted about 40 bullets. I'm a moron. Just want to point that out. But hey, I showed you the secret room. It looks like there's another one over here. It's got a big button on it. Let's go and check that one out. I never find these. Usually you find them by hitting the wall with certain kinds of weapons and it'll start to crack. I'm hoping there's something good here. I do not know what that is. This is probably a terrible idea. Is this a reference to Dark Souls 2? It certainly looks it. What do we have here? Do I have something for the pot? Okay. I just threw away my only good gun. I hope this does something good. Oh, it made a new one. This is the Screecher. It's kind of a sound gun. Alright, neat. So they transmogrified it into something else. I hope this is better than what I've got. It has a very, very large magazine, so hopefully that will be useful in my quest. If you're not a fan of guns, then maybe you won't like a game called Gungeon. Who knew? But let me give you this warning that you are not in for an easy time. What this game has going for it, you know, I do genuinely believe this is a real strength of it, is that unlike a lot of roguelite games, it is highly skill-orientated, less so item-orientated. Or oriented. Depends on which country you're in as to which of those is correct. That doesn't go through those. Alright, good to know. Ow. So there's a lot of dodging, which I'm clearly not doing right now. There is a lot of timing involved. You can tip over these tables as shields, which I think is an extremely cool mechanic that is fitting with the theme. It's very John Woo, certainly. It fits the theme very, very well, but it also happens to be a really well-designed mechanic. You can push the tables. There's even an enemy that if you push a table over, it'll take cover behind it, which I thought was a neat little feature. It really gave a nice little piece of personality to an enemy that was otherwise kind of one of the weakest in the game. This gun, by the way, does almost no damage. I assume the benefit of it is some form of AoE, but I'm not really liking it right now. I'm just sort of holding the button down and hoping for the best. I don't think you ever have to reload it, though, so that is an advantage in and of itself. I will hopefully get past the Gatling goal. I certainly hope so, at any rate. It's possible that I won't. I'm going to just pop that blank there, because things were getting really bad. And I got caught by the bullet anyway. Ugh. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. It's not going well for me. I might be able to beat it, though. We'll see how it goes. It's difficult. You can take quite a lot of hits. You know, the Marine can take the most hits by default out of any character, and you can get those upgrades, but I just find that versus most of the roguelites that I've played in the past, this game in particular is much, much more focused on your individual skill and dexterity as opposed to which items you have. That's bollocks. That said, however, it does fall into the trap that many roguelites do, and I object to this consistently. It falls into the trap of having a very slow start. A very slow start that can be made even more difficult by blind luck, basically. Whether or not a level actually has good items, whether or not a level has good guns, whether or not a level has any guns at all. It's entirely possible for a level not to have any. I have done plenty of runs where I've never found a gun, and I'm stuck with my basic pea-shooter weapon, in some cases literally pea-shooter, to deal with a boss that has 1,000,000,001 hit points, and it takes forever, and of course, the longer it takes to kill an enemy, the more likely you are to get hit by a bullet. And regaining health can be tricky in this game. Health is a random drop, or you can buy it from a shop, assuming you find a shop. I believe every level has one. But that's assuming you get enough money and you don't need to buy something else and all that sort of thing. The economy is based on those little gold bullets over to the right there. Or brass, or whatever you want to call it. And that money is extremely limited, so you have to be very picky, very choosy as to what you actually spend it on. It's a nice system overall, but it is an aspect of roguelites that some people really like and some people do not, and that is that random nature of it all. The idea that a run can be an utter failure from the very start. You can be doomed before you even enter the Gungeon in and of itself. But I think a solid argument can be made that, look, all of this bad luck, all of these bad things can be overcome by skill. There are no gear checks that I've seen in this game. Bear in mind, I've only ever got to level 3, and that does not sound that impressive, but the bosses will kick your ass, and I'm terrible. That's just how it is. That's a 12 hours of gameplay. I've only ever reached level 3 a few times. As the second boss is generally a nightmare, and the second level has an awful lot of nasty critters in it. Nastier than this, indeed. Some people love that aspect of roguelites. In fact, it's what keeps them playing. Some people despise it. The question, I think, for consumers that are not 100% familiar with this genre is whether or not Gungeon overcomes that or changes it. And that's also a relevant factor for those that do enjoy the genre, because they might not like the fact that certain ideas have been changed. I will say, again, the aspect of skill is a huge factor within Gungeon. The dodging is a big deal. You do at least get to take more than one hit. But that doesn't stop me from being frustrated when I'm stuck with a very dull gun for a while. Yeah, that I think is the difference. Yes, of course, this gun is low power compared to most of the drops I can get, and I didn't get a gun from that chest, and that's probably one of the only chests I'm going to get to open this level. I got, frankly, a fairly useless item, in my opinion. But it's not the power of the gun that bothers me. It's not the power of the weapon. It's how dull the starting weapons actually are for the most part. You know, this is a regular pistol. It just fires forward. That's all it does. This is a game, by the way, that has a gun that shoots pirate ships. It has a gun that shoots fish. It has a gun that shoots a hammer when you run out of ammunition in a magazine, which I thought is really, really awesome. It has a trident that fires flames. This shoots bees. I just got a gun that shoots bees. I mean, if you don't understand the buzz about this game by now, then I don't know what exactly will convince you. But that is still a problem, and I think there are games that solved it. There are two games that I can think of right off the bat are Risk of Rain, which started you with a full kit. This game kind of does that, but it's nowhere near as impactful as Risk of Rain, which has, like, skills and a certain class set. You know, you're basically playing a class in Risk of Rain. You can claim that this is a class also, but really, you can change your class into another class simply by just getting another gun. So really, they're just a set of... It's a starting loadout, you know? It's not really a class, per se. They don't really have different abilities. Ziggurat also solved it. Ziggurat gave you a random spell at the start of the game in addition to your magic pew-pew wand. And you know what? I like that a lot. I like it made the start of the game... I don't believe I missed that timing. I thought that made the start of the game a hell of a lot more interesting. And I think Gungeon might benefit from that. Yes, there are some classes that start with 2 guns, and they are the more interesting ones in my opinion, but you do have to make a compromise in order to play those classes. You know, the Convict has less HP. She's just generally not as tough as the Marine and lacks things like the ammo, the callable ammo crate, and the accuracy buff. And her weapons are maybe not quite as powerful. So you do have to make a compromise for that level of variety. And the game really kicks into high gear when you get a different gun. Of course it does. It's in the name. It's a game about acquiring guns, beating bosses, and clearing levels. It's really that simple. There's nothing really more complicated about it than that. So when you start off with a limited arsenal, it's limiting your ability to, I think, to enjoy the game. So I think there may be an argument in favor of that. Although some people will turn around and say, look, you know, I suppose the pistol round of this game, as you could describe it, is just part of the experience and part of the pacing. I personally think it slows the game down a little bit too much. And it varies on a run-by-run basis. Sometimes it will ruin your run completely. You know, it'll make your first level boring. It'll make your first boss fight really difficult and slow. And then there are other times where you pick up, like, the BFG 9000, and then you just wreck the boss in about 5 seconds. It's just, there's a lot of variance there, and I think it affects the pacing more than it has a right to. However, despite that fact, that doesn't mean I don't like the game. I think in terms of combat, it's one of the strongest action-based roguelites that we have on the market right now. I think it's comparable to Ziggurat, even though obviously it's not the same perspective, and it's comparable to Risk of Rain as well. Risk of Rain can be a little slow from time to time, although, ironically, it's a game about being fast. So, there you go. That's just kind of how it works. We have some shoes. Kind of have some shoes. They're heavy shoes. I have a low center of mass. I don't know what that does, but let's open the excellently animated Ammonomicon to find out. I can keep their footing even when great force is applied to me. Okay, so it does not do knockback. All right. I mean, I have the bees, which is good, and I should hopefully be able to fight the boss, if I can find the boss. I do like this map, but I will say it would be nice if it zoomed out by default, because you have to scroll a hell of a lot on your scroll wheel to actually get it to where you can use it, which is a little bit irritating. I don't know why they did that. But you've got to admire the difficulty of the combat and the complexity of the combat relative to other games in this genre. Now, there are plenty of games that do really, really simple combat. You know, I'd say Isaac... I'm a moron. I would say Isaac, in many ways, is a game that focuses an awful lot on items and the power that can be acquired through items, as opposed to a specific combat system that involves a lot of dodging and rolling and deflection and the managing of different ammo types. And god damn it! Please go away. He's gonna murder me. He got close. I couldn't get away. Oh, no. I can't believe it. I'm screwing this up for you guys. I hate myself. Oh, I'm gonna pick a different character. Yeah, it won't help, but... Game is difficult. What can I say? Let's go with the Convict there to show you a couple of different guns. It does have that more advanced combat system. I think that puts it in a position in this particular genre, if I suppose you can call it that, that gives it a certain advantage over older games. And it makes me enjoy it a lot more. Now, I didn't enjoy Isaac as much as Gungeon because of the limited combat system. My Darker Purpose is another game that I didn't enjoy that much because of the more basic combat system. There are quite a few examples of games within the roguelite genre that have this particular problem. You know, some people don't think it's a problem, but I personally do. So I think in that way it advances the genre. Does it advance it a lot? I mean, not necessarily. You know, it is still ultimately a game about exploring rooms and killing stuff and collecting items. But it does it in a very accomplished way. There's obviously been a lot of love poured into it. The item variety is immense, assuming that you get to actually grab it. God damn it. I'm having a terrible set of runs here. I want to point that out. There's a lot to collect. There are, of course, many secrets to discover. There's a lot of replayability. I'll also say that it has online... No, it doesn't. No, mistake. Ignore that. It has a local co-op mode. Now, technically, I believe there is a way to do it online using NVIDIA's GameShare beta, although I don't necessarily know if this game actually supports that. I have yet to try it, so don't take my word for that. But increasingly, of course, we are getting games that are local co-op only because, yeah, netcode is hard. It's difficult to develop a game that will run online. It's expensive. Some developers just simply don't know how. So, as much as it would be fantastic, and I have definitely criticized games in the past for not having this, and I'll criticize this one too, you do have to bear that in mind when you do so. It's a shame, actually, that it doesn't have online co-op, because I think that that would definitely be a huge selling point for the game. It doesn't necessarily mean that the game is bad, no, far from it. It's just, it's a very difficult game, and having someone along to help you out, I think, does make the game more enjoyable, especially if you suck like I do. You can get someone to help you out a little bit, which is definitely beneficial. At least it has a co-op feature of some description, and again, with GameShare, you may be able to play it, but I just can't guarantee that. So do look it up on the internet before you buy on the basis of that, please, and make sure you have a compatible graphics card to actually make that work. The aesthetic of the game is wonderful. The pixel art is really great quality. The game, thankfully, runs at unlimited frame rate. Now, with the recent controversy around Hyperlight Drifter, which to me is not a controversy, it's simply Hyperlight Drifter is not as good as it could be because of the frame rate, and to me, it's made the game unplayable. I've tried. I've genuinely tried. I find the game clumsy. It's like rolling through treacle for the most part. You know, for a high-speed action game, the fact that we have that situation in this day and age is ridiculous. Gentle reminder, Super Mario Bros. Ran at 60 frames per second. Two-dimensional games do not have that excuse. This game runs at unlimited frame rate, and as a result, you have the responsiveness, you have that limited input lag, which is good, and the game generally feels tight. Doesn't mean I don't lose repeatedly, I do, I'm actually just losing my concentration. I think it's probably because I'm talking while I'm playing. It makes the game really, really hard to play, but I'm suck. But overall, I think the Gungeon is an absolutely phenomenal package. There's a lot going on with it. I do think that if you are as bad as I am at the game, you will suffer in terms of your enjoyment. Not because you die. Dying can be fun. It's not because of that. It's because you are limited in how far you can go, which means you have less chances to acquire really fun guns and see cool items and see new enemies. That's always going to be an issue with games, but ultimately games are, in my eyes, a competition. They're not a passive form of media that you can just sit back, loaf out, get fat, and experience, although getting fat can be done. Let's kneel at the altar and see what happens. The shadows grow darker. That is useless, because I believe that refills my ammo, and my ammo was at full, so I've just made the game a lot harder for myself. Oh well, never mind. This is the hunter, as you can see. I have a crossbow. Does a decent amount of damage, got great range. Although you have to reload every single round, which is not ideal. And this dog will sometimes dig for treasure, and sometimes it will just sit there looking smug, as it has a tendency to do. Does one-shot the basic enemies, though, so having it is great, assuming you can actually bloody aim with it. I suck. Apparently I need a laser sight on this crossbow, because I am the worst. It's a lot of nonsense coming our way. Nice mention has to also be given to the soundtrack. I do enjoy that very much. I'll let you hear a little bit of it right now, in fact. Pretty neat. Although I have to say that the floor-based music, the fact that each floor gives you the same soundtrack, is a little annoying. Simply because I am terrible at the game, and so I hear floor 1's soundtrack way more than anything else. I want to hear the rest of it. I guess I have to buy the soundtrack in order to hear the rest of it. There we go. That's why they sell soundtracks, because people like me are terrible at video games. Jesus, how did I miss that? He's right there. Come on. Come on! You're better than this. I'm not better than this. I wish I were better than this. Gungeon is really what you see on the tin, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you are looking for a projectile-based, action-focused roguelite, Gungeon is probably one of the best on the market right now. I don't really have too many qualms in saying that. I do feel it's a more advanced game than Isaac is. It's less item-dependent. It's more skill-orientated. I like the theme. I like the aesthetic better than I do Isaac, although a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. You know, a lot of that is very, very subjective, and the gripes that I have, as you probably noticed, are relatively minor. I am awful! Relatively minor. Certainly a couple of things I think could be improved. An addition of multiplayer co-op online would be fantastic. Probably won't happen, but it would be great. And, of course, I think maybe starting you with one more weapon would make the game a little bit more interesting and also reduced some of the random nature of it. The fact that you can just get screwed over by a bad level generation. There's definitely times when I've taken a few hits early because I've not been paying attention where I've just restarted the run at that point. Because, like, you know what? I'm never going to get anywhere with this. So what's the point? I'm just wasting my time. At least you do get that level of progression. The acquisition of so-called hegemony credits can happen when you kill a boss, and you can spend those in a shop, which will let you unlock new guns that can potentially drop in the Gungeon. That does not mean that you get them immediately. It means that they might appear in a chest, assuming you get a bloody chest, or you have a bloody key. You do start with one, but if you get one and get some stupid amulet, like the one that I got earlier, instead of a good gun, you're probably going to have a bad time. So, if you wish to enjoy the Gungeon, you have to accept those caveats. Are you willing to accept that level of RNG BS? Are you willing to deal with that? Do you want a game which is, for the most part, just about shooting things? There are rooms which do not involve that, but I have to admit they are not exactly frequent. I don't see them all that often. There are mechanisms to reduce that randomness, but they're not reliable mechanisms. Can you deal with 95% shooting things? Yes? Get Gungeon then. I mean, when it comes to shooting things, Gungeon's pretty phenomenal at it. Huh? When it comes to dodging things, Gungeon's pretty phenomenal at it. When it comes to really cool freaking guns, oh yes! Gungeon is pretty freaking good at it. Gungeon has achieved, I think, what Gungeon set out to achieve, and I don't think there's much criticism that can be leveled at that. Most of my criticism, I think, comes from genre conventions that I don't necessarily agree with, but I know for a fact there are plenty that enjoy this genre that absolutely do agree with said conventions. Thank you, Ms. Puppy. I appreciate that. So, if that's what you want, grab it. Gungeon's great. It will cost you $15 or your regional equivalent on Steam and GOG.com. As well as a couple of other digital distribution sites. It is a fine game that, in my opinion, lives up to the hype and, I suppose, the indie darling nature that it has certainly acquired over the last few years. We're gonna kill this damn thing now. It's dead. It's gonna die. I have a good gun. It's screwed. I froze it. There's a proximity mine right there. Hit it in the face. We're gonna kill it. This is gonna be our time, ladies and gentlemen. It is our time. It's slow. Look at that. It has no idea what it's doing. We've done good damage so far. We're gonna have it. We're gonna have this bloody thing. Gonna do him in. Gonna give him a right Royal Roger in. There you go. Look at that. The skill. The sheer level of skill on display right there. Let's not miss. Okay. To be fair, this is one of the easier level 1, but why did I say that? Why? No, stop. Stop saying dumb things. You will... I think I may have angered it. There we go. It's down. Stop saying dumb things that will get you killed. He's going down. I'm having him. I'm having him. I'm doing him. Oh no, I'm not going to do him, am I? He's going to kill me. No! No, I refuse. Not today. We will not vanish into the night. We will not go down without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today we celebrate Independence Day 2, actually. Surprisingly enough. Well, there you go. A void shotgun. Ooh. Delicious. I finally beat a boss for you. There you go. It happened. I put in that effort. It was all for you. And then, of course, you go to level 2, where you get murdered. That's what happens in the Gungeon. You dig it? I suggest you pull the trigger on your purchase. Ah! My name has been TotalBiscuit. I am obnoxious. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Enter the Pungeon. You can find it over for $15 or your regional equivalent on Steam GOG. If you do happen to enjoy this video, then by all means, feel free to click the like button. I would appreciate that. If you didn't, you can click the dislike button. I don't blame you. I am terrible. This may have given you some sort of panic attack. I have no idea. Why does this happen to me? It's because I'm bad. That's the obvious answer to that question. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I'll see you next time.